Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're jumping into, well, a really fascinating corner of healthcare, something that genuinely affects global well-being. We're talking about the global direct renin inhibitors market. DRIs, for anyone who follows cardiovascular treatments, you'll know these are pretty key, especially for managing hypertension. What makes them so interesting, and what we really want to unpack today, is how they work. It's quite unique. They basically block the very first step in the body's main system for regulating blood pressure.
That's the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, right? The RAAS pathway.
Exactly. And that specific action, blocking renin right at the start, makes them a powerful, a really targeted option, especially for patients who maybe, don't do well with other common drugs like ACE inhibitors or ARBs, maybe side effects, maybe they just don't respond. Right. So our mission today is to get a handle on where this market is now, where it's headed, and, what's actually driving this pretty remarkable expansion. And I mean, remarkables is the word. The numbers are, well, they definitely catch your eye. Back in 2021, this market was sitting at about $1.23 billion.
Which is already substantial.
It is. But here's the kicker. It's projected to more than double. We're talking $3.54 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah. That worked out to a 9.2% compound annual growth rate. So basically growing by an average of 9.2% every single year for over a decade.
That indicates some serious sustained momentum. It's not just a blip. And, looking beyond just the figures, why is this happening? If you connect it back to global health, the drivers are pretty clear. We're definitely seeing hypertension becoming more common globally. That's a big part of it. But it's also, I think, a better understanding of which patient groups really benefit most from this specific targeted approach.
Oh, okay. So more personalized medicine in a way.
Sort of, yeah. Add to that the fact that the global population is aging. Older people are just more prone to cardiovascular issues. And then there's this general trend towards adopting more innovative, perhaps more effective antihypertensive therapy. So it's not just market growth for its own sake. It really signals a kind of strategic shift in how we're tackling complex hypertension.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. So it's not just more people needing treatment. It's a more sophisticated approach to how they get treated.
Precisely.
And this deep dive then is going to show us not just the overall picture, but where this growth is actually happening, geographically speaking.
Right.
Like, what makes some regions stand out?
Yeah, exactly.
Could you give us a really unique snapshot of what's happening on this critical pharmaceutical frontier? Let's maybe start with North America. Our sources say it's still leading the pack.
That's right. North America's figures are strong. It went from about, $472.8 million in 2021, and it's projected to hit $1.3 billion by 2033. That's keeping pace with an 8.8% CAGR. And yeah, within that, the U.S. is still the biggest player, mostly because of, advanced R&D, lots of healthcare spending. It just allows for quicker uptake of new treatments.
Makes sense.
But what's kind of interesting is the acceleration we're seeing elsewhere in the region. Mexico, for instance, is actually projected to lead the region in growth rate, an outstanding 9.9% CAGR.
Really? Ahead of the U.S. in terms of growth rate?
In terms of the rate, yes.
Yeah.
And Canada's strong, too, at 9.6%. This surge in Mexico, it seems to be driven by things like better access to cardiovascular drugs generally, plus a big rise in public awareness campaigns and more diagnoses happening.
That's fascinating.
It really shows how, grassroots changes, improved access and awareness can really shift the dynamics on the ground.
Yeah, that accessibility and awareness point in Mexico is powerful. It kind of shows how local efforts can feed into these bigger global trends. Which leads us nicely over to Europe, I suppose. We see another pretty compelling growth story there, right? But maybe driven by slightly different things.
Yes, Europe is definitely another key area. It's projected to grow from around $414.8 million to $1.15 billion by 2033. That's an 8.9% CAGR, so very solid growth there, too.
Okay.
And within Europe, you see countries like the UK doing really well, a remarkable 9.8% CAGR forecasted. Germany's also strong at 9.4%. A lot of that seems down to supportive healthcare policies, reimbursement systems, and a steady stream of innovative drug launches coming through the pipeline.
So policy and innovation playing a big role there.
Exactly. But what's perhaps even more noteworthy is that the category labeled Rest of Europe, so beyond the biggest economies, actually shows the highest growth rate in the region, a 10.1% CAGR.
Wow. So emerging economies within Europe?
That's what it suggests, yeah. Strong market penetration happening in those areas. There's clearly significant potential for bringing new patients onto these therapies as infrastructure and access improve. So you get this interesting mix. Established markets optimizing their approach, and these newer markets catching up really fast.
It sounds like a real blend of strategy, policy, and just catching up on unmet needs. Very nuanced. But, okay, if we're talking about sheer scale and potential, Asia-Pacific often gets called the rising star.
Yeah.
And our sources seem to really back that up for DRIs.
Oh, absolutely. Asia Pacific is set for, well, pretty explosive growth. The revenue is expected to expand from $265.4 million to nearly $820 million by 2033.
That's a huge jump.
It is. And the growth rate reflects that a robust 9.6% CAGR overall for the region. But here's where it gets really striking. India is actually projected to top the global growth chart for this specific segment, a phenomenal 10.4% CAGR.
10.4%. What's driving that specifically in India?
Well, it's not just the massive population, though that's part of it. It seems fueled by a big increase in hypertension diagnoses as healthcare access gets better across the country. Plus, significant efforts in healthcare modernization are playing a role.
Right.
China's right behind at 9.9% CAGR, again, huge patient numbers there, and growing drug availability are key factors. And Southeast Asia as a whole is also growing fast, around 9.7% CAGR. It really highlights these vast populations that perhaps were underserved before, combined with rapid economic development and infrastructure improvements. It's like addressing unmet medical needs is directly fueling this market expansion.
Those Asia-Pacific numbers, especially India and China, they really do underscore the enormous scale, don't they? Both the health challenges and the market opportunities over there. So what about the other regions, South America, Middle East, Africa? Are we seeing similar patterns, or are there sort of unique things happening there?
We are seeing growth, maybe on a different absolute scale, but definitely with some unique dynamics and accelerators. South America shows pretty steady expansion. Brazil is leading the way there with a projected 9.1% CAGR.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the Middle East and Africa region, that's emerging as a particularly high-growth zone. Our sources point to Egypt and Turkey specifically.
Oh.
Yeah, both are projected to lead globally alongside India with an impressive 11.9% CAGR each.
11.9. That's even higher than India. What's going on there?
It seems to be driven by a real surge in demand for modern cardiovascular treatments. Think about a growing middle class, better awareness of chronic diseases like hypertension, and significant improvements in healthcare access, often backed by government initiatives. Basically, these advanced therapies are becoming available in places where they just weren't easily accessible before. So it's a compelling story of rising demand meeting much improved infrastructure and availability.
Right, that makes sense. It's like the conditions are becoming ripe for these advanced treatments to take hold. So we've taken quite a journey through the global direct renin inhibitors market here. What an insightful deep dive it's been. The big picture, the overarching narrative, it really seems to be one of, well, significant transformation.
Definitely.
And it's driven not just by more people having hypertension, although that's key, but also critically by these expanding global health initiatives focusing on cardiovascular health, plus growing awareness about prevention and, as you mentioned, the emergence of more innovative, more targeted drug delivery systems and therapies. It feels like a really dynamic space.
It really is. And what's fascinating, I think, is that understanding these trends, it isn't just for, people working in pharma or finance. It's actually incredibly valuable for anyone who's interested in global health or medical innovation generally, or just the future of how healthcare is delivered.
Good point.
This DRI market is, well, without a doubt, it's a space to watch. For the drug companies, obviously, but also for healthcare providers on the ground, for policymakers. Anyone looking at the future of treating cardiovascular disease. It really signals quite a profound shift, I think, in how we're starting to approach one of the world's biggest health challenges.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now as this direct renin inhibitors market keeps expanding and refining itself? What surprising new forms of care might actually emerge from all these advancements? And maybe more broadly, how could these changes fundamentally reshape our day-to-day approach to managing our own health? Moving beyond just the traditional doctor's visit and the pill bottle.
That's a great question to leave people with.
It really makes you think about the future of well-being, doesn't it?